Hi Dad, I just want to let you know that what you're going to be learning today is mostly my opinion, there's some facts, but this is not setting up an attorney-client relationship. We're not doing a, you're hiring me as your lawyer here. We are not doing a, I'm going to be representing you in family court thing. What we are going to be doing is giving you some education and some tools so that you can represent yourself when you go into family court or child support court. This is the standard legal disclaimer of, I'm not responsible for anything. I'm a lawyer, you gotta do it because my lawyers are telling me I gotta do it. Remember that, you're awesome, and I think that you have a great opportunity to go spend more time with your kids and to keep your child support at the minimum of what it should be. Hey Dad, welcome to Child Support Action Plan. This is our program designed to explain to you the basics of child support. The goal here is to sort of give you an understanding of what the history of child support is, why it's important today, and what you can do so that you minimize your child support obligations and maximize your child support activities. And the reason why I say that is, money is one thing, but the reality is child support should not be just money. Child support should also be time with your kid, teaching them, helping them with schoolwork, helping them learn new skills. Child support is not just money. Most people think of it as only a money issue because that's what the state's concerned with, that's what frankly mom's concerned with. But the reality is, from your perspective, you need to be approaching this from both a money perspective but also a time perspective, because time with your kids is the most precious thing that you can never get back. You can always make more money. You're a man, you know how to do this. The issue is getting the maximum amount of time with your kids so that you can give them the most support that they need. Have a great day, remember, I think you're fucking awesome. Part one, the big picture. Okay Dad, so now we're gonna go into a little bit of the history of child support because it's important for you to understand that the way things are today is not the way they've always been. Historically, like prior to 1970, children were granted to the parent that had the job because the courts thought that's the parent that can support the child. What this meant was men and women would get married, have children, and then upon a divorce, the kids would go with dad. That's why in the 1970s, there was a big movement to get to no-fault divorce, which made it easier for women to divorce their husbands. And then the court applied what's called the tender years doctrine. The goal was to take children who were in those very, very first years of their life and put them with the parent that was, in theory, the most nurturing, the one that had the most ability to emotionally care for the child. Historically, that was a big shift because we used to have the concern that the child had to be taken care of with food, housing, clothing, schooling. That's why historically children were given to the father upon a divorce because he was the one that actually had the most amount of resources because he's the one that had the job, access to credit, most of the assets. This is why women were not actually divorcing men, because as soon as they divorced the man, they experienced a huge drop in their net worth, their income, and as a consequence of that, they weren't able to provide for their children, and so the court would then take the kids away from them. In the 1970s, when that started shifting, when no-fault divorce came in, and we started to look at how are we going to reconfigure families, all of a sudden what you had were women divorcing men, and now the children were going with mom under the tender years doctrine because she's the better parent, and now you've got a parent who didn't have a job, didn't have access to credit, probably didn't have a whole lot of resources, and was going on public assistance. This is where welfare came into play, Section 8 came into play. A lot of those resources that were being applied for by women were being used to support children, and dads were not supporting their kids because there was no court order in place to support the children. As a consequence of that, people started going to court saying, I need to make dad pay to support the child. Even if I'm not going to be married to him, he still has to support the kid. That's where the child support system kind of got reconfigured, was in the early 1970s. And the goal primarily was to provide for the child financially, but also to keep mom and the child off of the public dole. And so what happened is a lot of parents were going on to child support court, not having to get welfare, not having to get Section 8. That's where a lot of the motivation for this stuff comes from. The goal being to provide for the child, not have the state provide for the child, but have the parents provide for the child. We have regulations that require both parents to support the children to the best of their abilities. It's one of those areas where it's kind of gray because dads are generally the ones who are working and mom's generally the one who's not working as much. She may have a part-time job, she may have no job, she may have been a stay-at-home mom. These are now factors that are going to impact child support when a couple breaks up and we have to reconfigure what the custody is going to look like and what the child support is going to look like. The problem with that is, going into court, Men are coming in saying, oh, I've got a job, I can take care of the kid, why can't I have 50% custody? Mom's saying, no, I can't get a job, I need him to pay support so I can take care of the kid, because the kid has to go to school, tutors, karate classes, football practice, rugby practice, whatever their lifestyle is. And so we've got this natural combination of factors that are in conflict with each other, because you've got dad who's concerned with having time with his kid, and mom who's got concerns about being able to make her rent. That's where we are today. We're having a huge social evolution of men who are now stepping up saying, I want more time with my kid. I should be able to provide for my child, not just financially, but also emotionally. I should be able to provide housing, have time to do homework, have an opportunity to regularly teach them the way I operate in the world. And moms are looking at it and saying, well, that's not necessarily in the child's best interest, because they're going to be spending too much time in a car. You're not able, because of your work, to have the time for the child. So there's a lot of factors that go into you going into court, being able to argue why you have the opportunity and the ability to be a parent. And one of the things we're going to teach in this course is how you present that to the court, which is also taught through our Dad's Child Custody Action Plan. We're going to touch on that briefly today. We're more concerned today with the financial aspects and the actual child support part, but understand that a big factor in your child support calculation is going to be how much time you spend with the child. And that's where you have to make the argument to the judge that you're as capable, you're available, you're ready to show up, you're ready to have more time with the kid. Mom needs to get a job, mom needs to change her lifestyle, the child's old enough to be able to handle going from one house to the other, that you guys are living close enough that you're not going to have these huge, 2 hours a day in a car commutes. When all of that combines, we should be coming to a more equitable child support number on both time and money. So that's what we're going to be covering today. Have a great day, remember, I think you're fucking awesome.
Hey, Dad, now we're going to talk about how child support is determined. And to be honest, there's really like 2 or 3 big factors that go into this. And the first big factor is time. How much time do you have with your child versus how much time does mom have with the child? And the reason why that's important is because it's going to have a huge impact when we start looking at your income versus mom's income. So if mom has a lot of time but no income, and you have a lot of income but no time, the reality is you're going to be paying maximum amount of child support. And the goal here for you is increase your amount of time with your child and make an argument that mom's income should be coming up, because mom should have at a minimum wage job. And she should at least have an opportunity to provide for her child the same way that you have the opportunity to provide for your child. And you should be asking for as much time as you can possibly get with your child and as much income on mom's side, so that there's a balance between the two of you. Because in theory, if the two of you make the same amount of money and you have the same amount of time with the child support should be almost zero. There should be nominal difference in terms of what the actual tax implication is, because one year if mom takes the child for the tax deduction and then the other year you take the child, we're alternating year for year. You guys should essentially be in the same place. But as those numbers change, as time changes or income changes, we're going to have a variance in child support. And this is a game that moms play who are in this for the money. Now, there are a lot of moms out there that are not in it just for the money. There's a lot of moms out there who are working full-time jobs, providing for their child, and they're the ones making the opportunity for the child to get to school on time, get to the doctors, get to the dentists, and then dad has the opportunity to work his job. And so as a consequence of that, mom needs some help with her finances, and that's why we're bringing that in, the child support, to balance things out. But there's also a lot of moms out there who are in this for the game of maximizing that child support. And those are the moms that we need to really take a look at and give you guys some tools to argue against, because what she's doing is she's artificially deflating her income and artificially increasing the time that she has with the child. She's going to do everything she can to prevent you from having custody so that she has the maximum amount of custody and the minimum amount of income, so that you have the minimum amount of custody and the maximum amount of income to pay child support. In general, the way the system works is there's a very long formula, and the court has this computer program. In California, it's called X-Spouse. It used to be DISO-Master. And most states have an online solution where you can plug in your income, mom's income, how much time you have with the children, and a few other deductions, health insurance, medical co-pays, if you're paying for a mortgage, what's the deductible interest, that those factor in. And then at the end of the day, the computer just spits out a number based off of your income, mom's income, your time with the child, mom's time with the child, your deductions, mom's deductions. And then it just says, this is the monthly amount to equalize the income between the two homes. And that in theory is the goal, to equalize the living standard between the two homes. The reason for that is you wouldn't want to have a child going from the big mansion with the big pool and all of the toys to this dinky little studio apartment and no pool and no toys, because there's going to be this difference in lifestyle. And that's one of the reasons why we do child support the way we do. It's designed to balance out those incomes and balance out the living environment for the child. So they're not feeling favoritism towards one parent who's got the pool and the toys and all the fun stuff and feeling less than when they're with the parent that doesn't have all of that. That's one of the theories behind child support, is to equalize the homes so that the child has the best living environment for them growing up. Now, there's a couple big exceptions when we're talking about child support, because there's people who are on the very, very high end of income, and that's called an exceptionally high earner, and they kind of opt out of the child support system. If you've got somebody who's making a lot of money, like I've had clients who are making millions and millions of dollars every year, they're an exceptionally high earner. So the child support guidelines, the number that the computer spits out, would be astronomical. It wouldn't make any sense. There's no reason why a child needs, let's say, $250,000 a month to be supported. So the court has an option when you get into that extremely high earner category to say, I understand what guideline is, it would be $250,000 a month, but realistically, mom only needs $15,000 a month to support that child, because that's a realistically fair number for that child. Alternatively, on the other end of the spectrum, where you've got dads who are not making anything, the dads who are unemployed or disabled, or having low wages for whatever reason, they're on the end where the court's going to be able to look at it and say, based on guideline, it's going to be a very, very low number. Like sometimes it's $2 or $3 or $10 a month child support. So the system is designed to deal with the reality of where you guys are at. And then it also has these fail safes, because if you're literally living at the point where all you can afford is a room for you to live in and food to survive, court can't even order child support. If you're actually that broke, they will end up with a zero order for the really low end part. The reality is most people fall in the vast middle ground. You make too much money to have no payment of child support, and you make enough money that there's going to be some order that's going to be a big chunk of what your income is. In general, what I say, if you want to estimate it, if you have every other weekend, Wednesday night pizza dinner, half the holidays, big chunk of time during the summer, you're probably going to be looking at about 25% of your gross paycheck. That's gross paycheck. It's the first number before taxes. 25% of that is what your child support is as an estimate going to be. Now that's going to change based on whether you pay union dues, whether you have a mortgage, whether you're paying the health insurance, whether there's daycare involved. That can go up or down. But as an estimate, just start with 25% of your gross paycheck is going to be your child support. I mentioned healthcare, I mentioned daycare, I mentioned co-pays, after-school sports, other activities. Those are all also dealt with in child support. So if you have a child who's going to school, and after school, because they get out at noon, they go to a daycare provider, and there's going to be from, let's say, 12 to 4:30, they're going to be in daycare, and that allows mom to have a full-time job. You're going to be paying half of that daycare because you have to pay for half of that daycare so the mom can have a full-time job. It's a win some, lose some. You'll win some because she's got a full-time job. You'll lose some because you got to pay for the daycare, or at least half of it, so that she can have that full-time job, which lowers your child support on the one hand, but increases it with the daycare on the other. It's a very difficult situation because a lot of times people want to say, well, I'll take care of the kid after school. And if you have a free afternoon and you've got that flexibility in your job, certainly a court can order that. Many people don't have that flexibility. If you're working a 9-to-5 job or a 7-to-3 or some schedule along those lines, it can be difficult for a court to say you should have the child in those afternoons because you don't have the freedom because of your job. The other big area in which we're dealing with is healthcare. Most of the time, each parent is required to pay for health insurance if it's at low or no cost through their employer. So if your employer has a group plan and you're actually able to provide health insurance for your child, you're going to have to do that. And you're going to have to split the copays, that $10 or $25 every time you go to the pediatrician or go to the nutritionist or you go to the dentist. That's going to get split too, because it's an expense of the child and you guys have to split the expenses. Now, some states are like California, where we've changed the system where that is no longer a 50-50 split. It's now based on the percentage of your income versus mom's income. So if you're making twice as much money as mom's making, you're going to pay 2/3 of those healthcare expenses, and mom's only going to have to pay 1/3. And we're going to apply that same principle to the daycare. If mom's making only 1/3 of what you're earning, you're going to have to pay for 2/3 of that daycare. Some states are like that now. Some states are still in the old system where it was just split equally 50-50. Okay, now let's talk about income. What is income and how do you prove somebody's got income when they're not working? So one of the things that happens oftentimes is moms will say, I can't work. Okay, well, can you really not work? Why? Well, I've got fibromyalgia and I'm disabled and no one will hire me because I've been a stay-at-home mom for too long. Okay, this is where we get into let's pick apart those arguments and get to what's really happening. Fibromyalgia. Does that mean that you can't work as a lineman in an electric utility when you're climbing up and down telephone poles? Or does it mean that you could work in an office seated at a desk? So we have to take a look at what's it really mean when somebody says, I can't work because. One of the other things we have to look at is, what are their skill sets? Do they have a college degree? What have they historically done? Have they always been a stay-at-home mom? Have they ever worked in a restaurant? Have they ever worked in an office? Have they ever worked retail sales? To some degree, everybody's got a skill set that they can get a job. At a bare minimum, everybody can go to work unless they're like severely disabled and there's some severe physical problem or some severe mental problem that prevents them from working, in which case they have a diagnosis of disability, I would imagine, from either Social Security or their doctors. But absent having an actual diagnosis of complete disability, everybody should be able to work. And if they have a child, they should be contributing to that child's support. So what we do is we take a look at that and we say, okay, mom, you're not working. You say you can't get a job. But we know that you could go down to one of the fast food restaurants in town and apply for a job and get a job at minimum wage, and they could hire you and you could work a 40-hour work week at minimum wage, and you could do that 4 weeks out of the month. What happens is the court will look at that and say, mom, you may not be working, but I'm going to assume that you could be working, and therefore I'm going to assume what you could be earning at a bare minimum, and that's called an imputation. We're imputing income to somebody. We're saying this is what you could be earning if you would get your butt in gear and go down to the local fast food place and apply for a job. And whether that's at the grocery store or the fast food place or the local retail store, someone will pay you minimum wage to have a job. And you could be earning money and you have a legal obligation to support your children, and you should get that job. So one of the tools dads have is to ask the court to assume that mom could be making a certain amount of money and that number should be added in to figure out what the fair number is for financial child support. It's a very powerful tool, and I've used it with great success because oftentimes I can get a mom to admit that, well, she used to do this and that job used to pay $20 an hour. Okay, well, that means you used to make $20 an hour times 40 hours a week is $800 a week times 4 weeks is $3,200 a month. Well, now I'm going to ask the court to impute to mom $3,200 a month income to balance out dad's income, so that now when we're looking at what the child support should be, we're going to break dad's number down to a more reasonable number, because if mom doesn't want to work, she doesn't have to. No court can make you go get a job. We have a 13th Amendment to the United States Constitution that prevents anybody from forcing you to work. But a court can make the assumption that you have the ability to work and that you have the ability to earn an income based on that work. And that's what we will do when we're looking to impute income to one party or the other. Now, this works the same way for dads. Dads can get caught up on this too. Dad could have been making, let's say, $150,000 a year as a pharmaceutical salesperson, and then decides because he doesn't want to pay his child support that he's going to lower his job and he's going to go get a minimum wage job, you're going to have a hard argument with the judge on that one. That's going to be a long conversation because the judge is going to say, well, why can't you work as a salesman anymore? You're still able to walk and talk and work, because if you're working at a fast food restaurant, you're able to walk and talk and work. So why can you no longer work as a pharmaceutical salesperson earning $150,000 a year? And unless you've got a really good reason, judge is probably going to say, sir, I'm going to impute to you the income that you could be earning, even if you're not earning it, because I have evidence that leads me to believe you could be earning more money. And that's a tool that mom is going to use, or the state, to impute income to you. So you have to be aware that if you have a job change and you decide to go from $150,000 a year to 20, you better have a darn good reason, because the judge is going to want to know why you're taking such a huge pay cut. One of the other big tools that we use in family court is a vocational evaluation. Now, if mom had a job where she was earning, let's say, $100,000 a year as a mid-level manager at a car dealership, and then decides like, well, I've had the baby and now I've stayed home for 3 years, and well, there's no jobs out there and I can't get a job, we could ask the court to order mom to go for a vocational evaluation. And what that is mom would go to a career counselor. She would take some tests on what are her abilities with computers and sales, and take a look at what's her educational background, and take a look at what's her resume show that she's had as previous jobs. And they'll make a determination as to what realistically in today's market mom could be doing to earn money. And a vocational evaluation can be a very powerful tool if it's a highly contested child support case, because mom may find that she may say, I can't work, but a vocational evaluation may come back and say, well, you know, mom, based on our study and our examination of your skills and your abilities, we see that you actually could be making probably closer to $120,000 a year, because in your marketplace, there's 4 open jobs for a mid-level manager, car dealerships. Why haven't you applied for those? And if you're not going to apply for them, again, we can't make you, but we can certainly say that you could be earning that much money, and a judge can impute that income to you. And we do that frequently with the vocational evaluation. It's a very powerful tool that dads need to be aware of, because it can really radically change that child support calculation. And it can also radically change the child custody, because all of a sudden mom may be more motivated to go get a real job.
Hey Dad, let's talk about how expenses are used in child support. It's a big thing that dads have a lot of confusion around, and they want to say that my expenses should count. Well, the reality is this: judges generally don't care about your expenses. They care about what your income is, because the way we calculate child support is your income, mom's income, time that you have the child. Those are the big numbers that get used. Now, I understand you're like, but I have to be able to pay my car bill and my phone bill and my rent and my utilities. I've got expenses. I've got to be able to live. I hate to tell you, but the truth of the matter is this: judges don't really care. The judges are concerned with how much money do you have based on your income, based on the schedule to pay mom for child support. The reason why we have that expenses, like in the income and expense declaration, California, we call it Form FL-150, is we'll use that number if dad doesn't show income. This is the situation where dad goes into court and says, I'm not working right now and I don't have any money. Okay, well, let's take a look at what you told the court. Your income and expense declaration shows you've got rent of $1,500. You got a car payment of $500. You got a cell phone payment of $200. That's $2,200. You've got food expenses of $400. That's $2,600. You're paying on 3 credit cards, another $100 a piece. That's another $300. So now we're at $2,900. You've got laundry, other expenses. By the time we're done, your monthly expenses are, let's say, $3,600 a month. Judge is going to ask you, sir, I understand you're not working. Yeah, Your Honor, I'm not working. But you're telling me you have $3,600 each month in expenses. Yes, that's right, Your Honor. Okay. Is your rent paid? Yes. Is your car paid? Yes. Is your cell phone paid? Yes. Okay, sir. Well, you are telling me that you have no income, but you're also telling me that all of your bills are paid. So how are your bills being paid? So I'm going to assume, as the judge, I'm going to assume that if your bills are paid, whether you're showing income or not, you have that monthly amount of income coming in. And we're gonna use that number to calculate your child support. And this is where dads can get tripped up, because they'll put a bunch of numbers in that expenses, they'll increase their expenses, and they'll think they're gonna get away with it. And the truth of the matter is, they're really doing is setting themselves up for failure, because that's the number that a judge will use, because if your bills are being paid, obviously that money's coming in. Judge is going to assume that you've got that money available to pay child support to mom to make sure that that kid doesn't end up on welfare, food stamps, Section 8 housing. So you got to be really careful and understand that your expenses are not necessarily the number that the judge is going to care about until you're not showing any income. Now, one of the other big areas that we have in family law are called perquisites. And this is really for the guys who are self-employed, the self-employed individuals that have their own company. They're running their life expenses through the business, whether it's a gym membership, whether it's a car payment, maybe it's a country club membership, maybe it's a golf membership, maybe it's we're using the company card to pay for our groceries, we're having our cell phone paid for by the business. Now, where this gets confusing for a lot of people is those can be valid expenses for the IRS. Those can be valid tax deductions, and the IRS says you can legally write off your car, write off some of your meals, write off your employee compensation for your gym membership, your health club membership, your country club membership. All of those are completely valid for the IRS. But in family law, we look at that and say, well, that's a life expense, and that life expense is actually additional income that should be available to help support the child. And so what the court's going to do is they're going to take those expenses that are valid for the IRS, pull them out, and put them back into your category of your income. So if you've got $100 a month being paid for your phone, and that's a deduction for the IRS, government's going to say, fine, you can deduct that. Family court is going to say, wait, bring that over here, because you've now got that expense that's being paid for by the company. That's actually income. You're artificially decreasing your income by putting it over here as a deduction, but we want to bring that back because somebody had to earn that $100 to pay for your cell phone, and we're going to include that in your income. And we're going to do that with your health club membership, we're going to do that with your country club membership, we're going to do that with your golf membership, we're going to do that with meals. If you're going at it every day, you buy meals for you and your crew, that can come back in. Those are perquisites of you owning your own company that are valid tax deductions, but they're also valid in family court as your income. And it's another place where guys get really upset because they don't think it's fair. Because, well, the IRS says it's a deduction, and it is a deduction, but in family court, we're looking at maximizing the support that's available and maximizing the income that's available. And so that's what happens when a court looks at your tax returns and sees a lot of your life expenses are being taken care of by the business. It's going to get added back into your personal income.
Part 2, strategies for fathers. So dads are looking to be fair in their child support. Dads want to pay their fair share of child's expenses, but they also want to have their fair share of child time. And in order to do that, frequently what happens is dads these days have to go into court and get a court order to give them more custodial time, more parenting time with their kids. And it's important for dads to step up and go into court and say, Your Honor, I am able, I am capable, I've got a flexible work schedule, I live close enough to mom, I live close enough to the school, I want to have more time with my child. Because support is not just financial, Your Honor. It's also emotional, it's also educational. I need to have an opportunity to change my child's life by having an active and engaged role in it. They deserve it. It's in their best interest for them to have it combined. It's in their best interest to have a definite relationship with their father, and I'm willing to change my work schedule. I'm willing to change where I live so that I can be more available and capable and ready to be there for my child. I've done parenting classes. I've done co-parenting classes. I've done first aid classes. I've done CPR classes. I am ready, Your Honor. My apartment has been baby-proofed. I've got pictures that I've shown you. I've shown pictures to mom of where I'm living, how I'm living. There's no reason why I shouldn't be an active and engaged father. And when I'm asking for a schedule that's going to allow the child to have equal time with both parents, you, Your Honor, should be granting that. If you want to learn more about how we do that, you should take a look at Dad's Child Custody Action Plan. We have both the book And we have a video course that teaches dads how to really argue to the court, how to get more time with their kids, how to make those arguments about why they're an active and engaged father, how to show to the court that you're an active and engaged father, and all of the reasons why you should have time with your child. Again, that's Dad's Child Custody Action Plan. Those videos are available. You can check it out at DAD'sLawSchool.com. Other thing that's really important is for you to document all of your time. It's important when you're going into court and you're arguing to the judge that you want to modify your child support and you want to modify your child custody, that you go in with a lot of proof. You got to remember, moms plot, they plan, they prepare, and then they prove. That's how they're so successful in family court. And if you're going into court as a man, you need to be able to plan out your line of attack, prove your arguments, and then be able to get a judge to see that as an active and engaged father, you deserve and your child deserves more time with your child. The way in which we do that is we document. And it starts with something as simple as going and getting one of those desk calendars from the Office Depot or the Staples, your office supply store, and literally just marking on it the days that you have your child, when you pick them up, when you drop them off, what did you do with them, and if you spent money, have those receipts available. And what I tell dads is take those receipts, staple them to it. We call it Dad's Diary because it's a diary of what have you actually done with your kid, because mom's going to come in and say, he doesn't use the time he's allotted. He's never around. He's a negligent parent. He doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't know anything about the kid. He doesn't know their best friend. He doesn't know their food allergies. He doesn't know their shoe size. And you need to be able to go into court and say, Your Honor, she can say all that, but here's my calendar showing all the time I've spent with my kid. Here's what I know about my kid. I know their best friend is Bobby. I know their shoe size is 3. I know. And that's important because when you're going into court, it's going to impact your credibility. You need to be able to show to the judge that you are a credible, capable parent, because mom's going to come in and say you're not credible, you're not capable, because she wants to do what? Maximize her custody time so that she does what? Maximizes her child support. You want to make sure that it's fair, and you need to be able to argue to the judge, and you do that with proof, documentation. Same thing with child expenses. This goes for whether it's Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, soccer practice, medical expenses, school supplies. All of those things that are extras above and beyond child support, you should be documenting and keeping track of so the mom can contribute her fair share. One of the solutions that we suggest that I'm a big fan of is Our Family Wizard. Our Family Wizard is used to communicate between mom and dad. Usually it's the email, and it's important with the email because it's archived. Once the email is set, it can't be changed. So I send mom an email, I can't go in and change what it actually says. So if I put nasty words in there, those words are going to stay forever. And why that's important is it's going to get used in court because messages from Our Family Wizard are court admissible. Our Family Wizard also has a great tool for tracking expenses. So you go to the doctor's office and you have a $25 copay. You can take that receipt, take a picture, upload it to Our Family Wizard, and now it's going to track that, okay, dad paid $25 copay. Mom now owes half of that, which is $12.50. Mom can then pay that $12.50 through Our Family Wizard, and it's tracked. It now knows that she's paid, you've been paid. There's no argument. That goes for you too. Mom goes to the dentist, pays a $50 copay, puts it in the system. There's all of a sudden a charge for you, $25 copay for the dentist. You pay that with PayPal or however Our Family Wizard has you pay. And the reality is that now mom can't go into court and say, he owes me all this money for all of these copays and these medical bills and these extracurriculars. No. You've gone in and you've got all those records from Our Family Wizard, which again, are admissible in court to show that you have paid everything you're supposed to pay. Document. It's the biggest thing dads need to learn about dealing with child support is document. Let's say now you want to go in and you want to modify your child support award. Let's say that you had a change in your pay stub. Here's where it's important. You need to remember that unless there's been a pretty big change in your annual pay, and I mean like 10% or more, probably not worth your time to go in and try and modify your child support, because unless the change is 10% or more, there's no change of circumstances. That's the basis for a court to make a court order that changes child support. So reality is, if your child support is not going to change a lot, it's probably not worth it for you to draft the paperwork, file it with the court, take off half a day from work, go and argue to the judge as to why your child support should go up or down. Mom, and similarly, is going to have to be able to argue to the judge that she should get more child support because your income has gone up so much. This is where she's going to say, you've got a second job, you're earning a lot, you got a new increase, you're driving a new car, so clearly you're making more money. May or may not happen. She's got to be able to prove that you're earning a lot more money in order to make that change. And usually it's got to be more than 10% of what your annual income is to change it. Now let's take a look at what happens when you lose a job. I need to go into court and change my child support because I no longer have a job. Okay, hold on there, cowboy. Judge is going to look at that and say, well, how likely is it you're going to be out of work for a long period of time, like 6 months or more? Because the reality is, if you've got a job and in an industry where it's maybe normal for you to go out of work for a while, or it's easy for you to get hired by a new company, a job loss is going to be temporary for court's perspective. You're probably going to get another job, probably going to be earning about the same amount of money. And the reality is courts don't want to change anything. And so even if you go into court and you say, I lost my job, I want to modify my child support, judges are probably going to look at you and be like, let's wait. Let's see how long you're really out of work. Problem with that is all that waiting time, you're still owing on that child support. And if you're not paying it, you're going to be creating arrearages. You're going to be creating a debt that's going to catch up with you sooner or later. The reason why you lost that job is crucial to your arguments. Did you lose that job because the company went out of business? Okay, that's a big factor. Court may look at that and say, more likely that you're going to have a hard time getting another job. Did you just get laid off temporarily? Is it a seasonal layoff? Court's not going to look at that as a reason to modify child support. You knew it was coming. We're going to analyze that as a part of your child support. We're going to take a look at what's the real income you're earning and how likely is it that you're going to get rehired. Some companies lay off in November, rehire in January. You're really only going to be out of work for 2 months. We're not going to change the order for 2 months. Did you quit? If you just quit your job, that doesn't count. You can't quit your job and say, I'm not working, don't have to pay child support. Judge is going to look at that and say, we can't make you work. That's that 13th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution thing again. But we can say you're going to continue to pay your child support because you voluntarily quit. If you voluntarily quit, that's not grounds to modify your child support. Did you retire because you've reached a certain age and now you want to retire? Well, again, court can look at it and say, we can't make you go ahead and work. What we can do is say, based on what you were earning, what you could be earning, and what your retirement income is, we can base child support on that. Did you get fired? People think, I got fired from my job. I don't have a job. I can't pay my child support. No, because the court's going to look at that and say, well, what did you do to get fired? Did you violate a company policy? Did you fail a drug test? Did you do some affirmative action like sexually harass somebody that caused you to get fired? Were you rude to a customer that caused you to get fired? All of those, the court's going to look at and say, well, it was your behavior that caused you to get fired. Had you acted properly, you would still have that job. You would still have that income. We're not going to let you off the hook because you acted poorly and now say you can't pay your child support. Court's going to, again, impute the income to you because you still could be working, but for your own bad actions. You need to remember that a court's going to look at several layers of what happens to figure out should you and can you actually be paying your child support. Handling arrearages. When someone gets behind in paying their child support, the state imposes an annual interest rate. Now in California, that interest rate is 10%. What that means is if you owe a $500 a month child support, you're going to pay $50 as an annual interest charge for that $500. And it's going to be accruing each month, not $50 per month, but $50 over the course of the year. So that $500 payment is getting charged $4 for the first month, $4 for the next month, $4 for the next month, so that over the course of the year, it's going to be a total of $50. But now that $500 child support payment is now $550 if you're a year past due. And then the next one is $550 past due. And then what happens is you start making payments on that. And the way that the payments go is the payments go towards the interest first. So the base child support is still owing and still accruing interest. That's how people get really far behind really quickly on their child support because they apply the payments to the interest first not to the actual principal, the child support that you owe. What that means is if you start getting behind, you have to get caught up as quickly as possible because you're going to have payments that are going to continue to accrue interest because all you're paying is the old interest while you're still accruing new interest. Even though the debt may be a year old and you may have paid a ton of money towards it, it doesn't actually get to the actual child support payment until all the interest charges are paid. That's why you want to be really careful and not get behind in your child support. Because what happens is this: once you're more than $2,500 behind in your child support, the government can take your passport. Sometimes that's a problem for people if they're working internationally. The government can take your driver's license. That's a problem for most people because if you can't drive, you can't get to work. And if you can't get to work, you can't earn the money to pay back the child support that you're behind on. I know. It's kind of crazy the way that works. There's a solution to that though. If you're behind in your child support, you have to go back into court and ask the court to release your driver's license and put you on a payment plan so that so long as you're making, let's say, a $50 payment every month towards the arrears, your driver's license will still be valid so long as you stay current with that payment plan. This is really crucial for guys who've gotten behind because as soon as you get behind and they take your driver's license, if you get pulled over, then they can take your car because you're driving without a license. Now you've got to pay to get that car back from impound at $100, $200 a day while you still owe for child support, while you can't get to work because you don't have your driver's license. It's this cascading effect of problems that all stem from, I got behind on my child support by a month or two, and now what's happening is losing my job, losing my car, losing my ability to work. That's when life becomes really kind of crazy for a lot of people. That's why it's really important to stay on top of this stuff. Now, what I mean by stay on top of this is if you're making payments, you need to make sure that those payments get recorded as child support. Because if you just give her cash, what's going to end up happening is she's going to A, deny that you actually paid it. B, you don't have any proof that you paid it. So that's why you have to pay either by check, wire transfer, Zelle, Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, money order, something that in the memo says child support, let's say March 2025, so that you can actually say this $500 was for that March 2025 child support payment, so that when you have to go back into court, you can say to a judge, they said I didn't pay it, but here's the proof, Your Honor, that I did pay March of 2025. That's important because if there's an argument over whether or not that month is paid, if you don't have the proof and they say it wasn't paid, now you're going to owe it. Now you're going to owe interest on it. Now it's going to become that much more of a problem going forward. When you have arrearages, if it's just money that's owed to mom, sometimes you can negotiate that overdue, past due child support. Maybe mom's willing to make a deal with you and just say like, all right, just give me half and we'll call it even. The kids are 18, we're done. I don't want anything more from you. I want to move on with my life. Sometimes that can happen with moms. You can negotiate a payout. You can negotiate a buyout of that arrearage. However, if that arrearage, if that money you owe comes from money that was owed to the state, if mom was collecting welfare or food stamps, the state will not ever, under any circumstances, waive the money that was owed. You're going to owe that forever, which is one of the reasons why you have to make sure that you're staying on top of your child support, because so long as you're paying what you've been court ordered to pay, the state won't come back at you for more money, but you have to be on current terms with that. The state will never forgive money that was paid for food stamps, Medi-Cal, Section 8, any government funds that were paid to support a child when you had an obligation to support that child, the state's going to come after you for. Sometimes people are very concerned that the judge is going to put them in jail if they owe child support. Honestly, here's my experience. In 27 years, I've seen one person get put in jail for not paying their child support. What generally happens is the court tries to put pressure on you by taking your driver's license, taking your passport, taking your professional license, like your general contractor's license, your barber license, your real estate license. If you're a lawyer, your bar license can be suspended. All of those are ways in which the state can put pressure on you without having you go to jail. The one time I saw somebody go to jail, the person owed over $100,000 in child support and walked into court dripping in gold coins, brand new Jordans, lots of flashy clothes, and the judge said, why aren't you paying your child support? And the man said, because I can't. And the judge looked at him and said, I don't believe you. And then the other side came out with bank statements that showed he actually had money in the bank and he just wasn't paying it. That's when the judge said, okay, you're going to jail and you can get out of jail as soon as you pay your past due child support. And that's what ends up happening. You've got to be in that situation where you have the money in the bank and you're just refusing to pay it. That's when a judge will put you in jail. In general, if you're just behind in your child support, you're not going to go to jail unless there's another reason why. Like in this case, the guy was actually in contempt of court because he was ordered to pay it. He had the ability to pay it and he wasn't paying it. And that ability to pay it is a big factor because if you don't have the ability to pay it, the court can't enforce it because they have to be able to have you actually comply with their court orders. If you can't comply with a court order, like you physically don't have the money to write the check, the court can't make you do something that you can't physically do. That's why if you're going to get in trouble with the court, you're most likely going to get in trouble with the court by you being in contempt when you have the ability to comply, but you refuse to. So don't do that. It's a bad idea. Other than that, you need to just stay as current as you can with your child support. You need to modify it when you can and understand that there's a lot of things that you can do to help yourself. Keep track of your records, pay her not in cash, pay her with something that's traceable, have the memo marked the specific month that it's being paid for, and have a record so that when you have to go into court to defend yourself, you've got the evidence and you have the proof. Part 3. Enforcement. This is the way the government's going to enforce their government order for you to pay child support. Number 1, it's going to be a wage garnishment. Now, if you have a regular job, the court can make an order that child support that you have to pay can come directly from your employer. They take it right out of your paycheck. A lot of guys don't like this. A lot of guys think like it makes them look like a deadbeat or a loser or a scumbag. Like, I can pay my child support. I get it. I understand that there's that ego part of you that's like, I shouldn't have to have the money just taken from me. Here's the thing. The employers don't really care. They don't really look at you differently because you have a wage garnishment. It happens a lot. From my perspective, it's actually kind of a good thing for you because now you've got a third party, you've got this government agency that's keeping track of the payments. They're keeping track of the money they took from your paycheck, and they're keeping track and they're supposed to be giving it to mom. So once it's out of your hands, now it's on them. If they screw up, it's their responsibility to explain to mom why she hasn't gotten her money. This can be a really good, useful thing for you because it's one less thing to worry about. You get your paycheck and that's what you get to live on. You know what your dollar amount is and you're not going to get behind. And not getting behind is crucial to not screwing up your life because if you get behind, now we've got enforcement issues. Now they can take your driver's license. Now they can take your passport. Now they can take your professional license if you're a general contractor, a real estate agent, a barber, a plumber, electrician. Whatever you do that has a state agency involved that authorizes you to work, that can get taken from you if you get behind in your child support. But if there's a wage garnishment in place and they're just automatically taking it, now you don't have to worry about those. You don't have those problems. It's one less thing to take care of. Actually makes it easier, I think, for guys who have to stay in compliance with their child support orders. In the long run, a wage garnishment can be one of your best friends because if you get behind, now you can ask for an audit and an audit will have them actually produce all of the documents of all of the money they've taken from you, which they may screw up on, but you've now got your pay stubs and all of your pay stubs are going to have that line item of wage garnishment for child support. So now you've got your argument. They screwed up. It's on them to fix it with mom. That's why I think wage garnishments can be a good thing. They're not really as bad as most guys think because honestly, HR people, they're used to seeing this stuff. They don't think that much about it. It's just one more thing they have to deal with, like union dues, health insurance, dental insurance, glasses. It's just one more thing to deal with. The other 2 big areas in which enforcement actions happen are this. 1, bank levies. If you get behind, the state in trying to collect child support can and will just go right into your bank account, take the money from you. They will just take that money, if there's money sitting in a bank account, apply it towards your past due child support, and eventually give it to mom. The other thing that can happen is this. If you are due a tax refund every year, that tax refund, whether it's from the state or the feds, can be intercepted, meaning they will take that tax refund that was supposed to go to you and they will give it to mom as a basis for the child support. It's not a great solution. I don't recommend you get behind in your child support. You should stay on top of that, because that way you're going to get your tax refund. That way your bank account won't get levied. But those are the two other big ways in which the state will get their money for the child support. And you need to be aware that those are possibilities and how to fight that. Best way? Don't get behind in your child support. Part 4, moving forward. It's been a long road, guys. Hopefully you've gotten a lot out of this. I just want to wrap up with a few things to remind you going forward. A, it's not a life sentence. Child support is something that can be devastating for the moment, but it does end eventually. And so long as you keep working, you can get out from under it. You can get it all paid off and move on with your life. So long as you stay current on your child support, usually those kids when they age out at 18, sometimes 19 if they're still in high school, will end out not having to get child support anymore from you, and as a consequence, your obligations to your ex will end, so long as you stay current throughout the whole thing. Once a child has aged out, if there are arrears, if there is money owed, you'll have to keep paying until that's paid off. Remember, it's still going to be collecting interest, and sometimes the state will actually put penalties on top of that interest, but that's pretty rare. Remember to keep your detailed records, keep those bank statements, keep those pay stubs, because you want to be able to prove until you're absolutely done that you've been paying your child support, that each and every payment has been made, and be able to substantiate it to the court that you actually have made your payments. Remember, not paying your child support can cost you your professional license, your trade license, your driver's license, your passport. All of those are the ways in which the state can control whether or not they're getting their money and to make you pay it. They can also take your tax refund and they can put a bank levy. They can also put a levy on your property. They can put a levy on your car. They can go after you, so you don't want to get behind in your child support. Common mistakes that guys make: don't pay her in cash. I don't care what she says, don't pay her in cash. Because if you pay her in cash, that's going to be a gift. It's not going to count towards your child support, and you're going to end up having to pay twice. How do you pay her? Zelle, PayPal, check, wire transfer, credit card, Cash App, money order. Any way that you can keep a record to show that you paid it is how you want to pay your child support. There's lots of ways to do it. Just make sure that each payment has a notation on it that says March 2025, June 2026, whatever it's for. Just make sure that you're actually noting that that month's payment is being made for a specific month. And lastly, the biggest thing is this: don't ignore it if you get notice that you have to go to court to deal with your child support. Don't ignore it if she's going into court saying she wants to modify it up. Don't ignore it, because what's going to end up happening is she'll go into court, she'll tell the judge a bunch of lies. What's going to happen is your child support's going to go through the roof, and now you got to come back into court, argue why it shouldn't be made, argue why the change shouldn't happen. And once a court order is made, they don't generally get changed until a long time later. So if she lies and gets a court order that increases it this month, it could take you 3, 4, 6 months to get back into court to get it changed. But for those 3 or 6 months, you may have to pay that higher dollar amount, which that could be a lot of money. And all of a sudden, you're now going to be behind, earning or having to pay interest on top of it. You're going to be in a lot of trouble really quick. Don't ignore it when you get court notice that you have to go in and deal with your child support. Okay, guys, I know this has been a long session. I hope you got a lot out of it. If you've got further questions, feel free to reach out to me. It's David at DAD'sLawSchool.com. And remember, I think you're fucking awesome.